Welcome back, everybody. John Aravosis here. It is February 14th, Valentine's Day, at least here in America, maybe worldwide. Who knows? Thank you, Carlos Bond, for the gift already. I am here to do your nightly news update about the latest from Ukraine. I will get TikTok rolling as we're talking on my iPad. As always, we wait about a minute or two for folks to come in on TikTok and YouTube and some of the other services first before we start. And while we are waiting, if you guys would maybe just introduce yourselves, say where you are from. It's our little tradition, but it's kind of a nice thing to do. And then I will jump in. We've got a lot of news and a lot of annoying news tonight, actually. It's annoying news day, just so you know. Not very good for Valentine's Day, but what do you do? Oh, is the sound being bad again on TikTok? Oh, I don't know why my mic isn't working. All right, unplugging it again. My mic is no longer working on TikTok, and I don't know why. I mean, this is fine now, but I've been using my good mic on TikTok, and for some reason, TikTok no longer is liking my good mic. So it takes 8 seconds. I know. I had to unplug my mic. Anyway. All right. So anyway, hello, guys. TikTokers, welcome. If you guys would maybe introduce yourselves as well, where you're from. And we'll wait a second. And as soon as we got a critical mass of folks on, I will jump in and start the news. So welcome, welcome. It's really annoying me. I'm going to have to do a test or something as to why my good mic is no longer working on TikTok. It's ticking me off. No pun intended. Anyway. Anyway. So yes, like I was saying, we've got a lot of news tonight. A lot of annoying news, actually. I'm going to have a rant or two. Forgive me. You're being warned in advance. Oh, I am not happy about this. Anyway. Another maybe half a minute, guys. Remember, we always wait until there's a critical mass that shows up online because people come a little bit slowly. So the first minute or two, where folks introduce yourselves. So thank you for that. And I'm about to start now, I think. I'll start now. All right, welcome, everybody. I am John Aravosis. It is February 14th. Happy Valentine's Day, everybody. We are here to talk about our latest update from Ukraine. Thank you, Sigsar, for the hat. As you guys know, I do these updates Monday to Friday, 6 p.m. Eastern Time, U.S., and we talk about the latest news from Ukraine for about the first half of the show, and then the second half of the show, I take your guys' questions. The way you submit questions on TikTok is via the Q&A link that you find in my profile. On YouTube and everywhere else, just use the comment box at the bottom. I do very much appreciate your gifts, whether it's the love bomb from PJ on Valentine's on TikTok, or the super chat questions on YouTube, because I do this for free. I have been doing it full-time since the war broke out, and I'm trying to do this as a full-time thing. So thank you for the gift there, Cindy. So when you guys buy me the gifts, you're helping to support my work, so I appreciate it. All right, let me jump right in. So attackums. No attackums for Ukraine. So this is going to be a little bit of a rant, probably. The Biden administration announced today via Politico, which is a very good, trusted publication, that they just can't provide attackums to Ukraine. Thank you, Leanne, for the time bomb there, the love bomb, I should say. Now, attackums it's a cute name, ATACMS. Thank you, Bonnie. It's a cute name, attack'em, because like go attack them. Thank you, Diana. And basically, Ukraine for a long time now has been wanting longer range missiles that can go further than the missiles we're currently providing Ukraine. We are providing Ukraine only missiles that can go 60 miles distance maximum, and that's stretching it, which is equal to 100 kilometers. In the new weapons package announced maybe a week or two ago, we announced that we're going to be providing longer range missiles that are actually a package of a bomb and a missile, GLSDB, ground launch, small diameter bomb, GLSDB. Thank you for the gifts there on TikTok. These can go around 100 miles or 150 kilometers, but no longer than that. Now, here's the problem. Ukraine has been wanting longer range missiles. Ukraine needs longer range missiles if they're to hit all of the occupied territory that Russia has taken. For example, let me just show you really quick. We've got the map of Ukraine. Now, the territory that Russia occupies currently, okay, it's all of this more or less where my fingers are. Okay, this up along the river here and then down here. So it's all of this basically is occupied. It's about 18% of Ukraine's territory. In order to be able to reach, now mind you, right, the Russians, this is Russia, the Russian mainland here, in order to reach all of the Russian occupation, the Ukrainians need longer range missiles. The current missiles we give them cannot reach all of the Russians. With the new ones, they can. Now, anybody who's been paying any attention to the Ukraine war knows that we've been talking about missiles for a long time. Ukraine keeps wanting longer ones. And the Biden administration had two excuses for why they couldn't provide Ukraine these longer range missiles. Well, they totally came up with a new excuse today that they've never even given before. Thank you, Flower Lady. But we'll get to that in a second. And I think it's total BS. And that's the sort of subject of my rant today, because I think the Biden administration is making up excuses for why it doesn't want to provide these missiles for Ukraine. And that ticks me off because I don't like being lied to. Now, we'll talk a little more about this. So the previous two excuses for why we could not give Ukraine these longer range weapons, thank you, Pauline, for that, is one, we don't want escalation because Vladimir Putin would get mad if we provide Ukraine better weapons. And if Vladimir Putin gets mad, he's going to go nuclear. Except we've now provided Ukraine better weapons for a year now. Mind you, every month, slowly. Right? It's not like we provide Ukrainians the weapons they want. Every month, at the beginning, we gave them Stingers. Thank you, Al, for that. Then we gave them some HIMARS, but we only gave them one HIMARS, and then we gave two HIMARS, right? We were like very slowly. Recently, we got to the point where we're now providing better air defense systems, the Patriot missile systems. Thank you for the hearts there, Marcy. The armed personnel carriers, and finally the tanks, right? Finally, a couple weeks ago, we finally agreed we'll give Ukraine tanks. Mind you, each of these steps, it's not like we decide to do it and it happens. We've got to train the Ukrainians how to use these things. That takes months. We've got to get these weapons to the Ukrainians. That takes months. So by slowly, exactly, it's the boiling the frog example, which somebody just said on TikTok, where the idea is you boil the water, but if you turn the heat on low, it takes forever for the water to boil. In this case, the weapon supply to Ukraine has been on low, and we keep slowly giving them closer and closer to what they need. And every time we drag it out, as I said, like the tanks, it took us a year to figure out this tank thing. Well, now guess what? The American tanks, they may not even arrive for a year, the tanks we're offering, okay? The other tanks, Germany said, and it's not Germany's fault, but Germany said the majority of the tanks Germany is going to provide, and they're providing a couple hundred, won't get there until next year. That's because we all dragged our feet. Well, anyway, back to the issue at hand. These long-range missiles that Ukraine needs, and they really do need them. They need them in order to reach Russian ammunition depots. Mind you, this is Russian ammunition storage. So the idea is the Russians are storing their ammunition, you blow it up. Well, if you blow up the ammunition, it makes it a lot harder for people to, for the Russians to basically attack. The second thing is to hit Russian military barracks. The third thing, to hit Russian command and control, which would be basically the military headquarters, okay? We were told two reasons the U.S. did not want to provide these weapons to Ukraine. One, nuclear war. Vladimir Putin would have nuclear war if we gave Ukraine better weapons. Well, for the last year, we keep giving Ukraine better weapons. Every time Putin says it'll be nuclear war, and what happens? Zero happens. We have finally realized that Vladimir Putin is a bluffer. I knew this all along, but finally the administration is going, okay, the guy's bluffing, which is why we can give them the tanks now, and it's not a big deal, right? Okay. That was the first reason we couldn't give them long-range weapons. The second reason we couldn't give Ukraine long-range missiles, according to the Biden administration, was what happens if Ukraine uses them to attack Russian territory, right? In other words, it's one thing if Ukraine uses the weapons we give them to attack this area, which is actually Ukraine occupied by Russia. But what if Ukraine uses our weapons and they attack Russia itself? Okay, but we're already giving Ukraine a ton of weapons they could use to attack Russia itself. Literally, Ukraine could use a bullet. I mean, Ukraine borders Russia. They could use a bullet. They could use a grenade and attack Russia. They haven't been. They could use those 60-mile range missiles we gave them to attack Russia. They haven't. So basically, the two big reasons, the only reasons the Biden administration gave until now, for a year now, okay, of why they couldn't give Ukraine these long-range missiles they need is because, one, Putin would go nuclear. We now know that's a bluff. And two, the Ukrainians will use it to attack Russian land. We now know they won't. So you'd think now we can give them the weapons. Oh, no. Today we learned via Politico that the Biden administration has a new excuse, an excuse that nobody has given for a year now, as to why we can't provide these weapons to Ukraine. Let me read you from Politico. The Biden administration has given its Ukrainian counterparts another reason for not sending them much wanted long range missiles. The U.S. is concerned it wouldn't have enough for itself. In recent meetings at the Pentagon, U.S. officials told Kyiv's representatives, Ukraine's representatives, that it doesn't have any Army tactical missile systems to spare, according to 4 people with knowledge of the talks. Transferring ATACMS to the battlefield in Eastern Europe would dwindle America's stockpiles and harm the U.S. military's readiness for a future fight. Isn't it kind of funny how it's been a year and nobody at the Pentagon knew that we didn't have enough missiles to give Ukraine? All this time, they've been saying, oh, we've got the missiles. We just don't trust you yet. And we're very worried about Putin. But if that ever gets fixed, oh, we've got the missiles. But now 1 year later, when all the other concerns were met, suddenly the Biden administration has uncovered this mysterious fact that nobody knew, that we don't have enough missiles to give Ukraine. Now, Germany pulled some BS like this a while ago, too. The Germans were promising weapons, and then all of a sudden, I think it was the tanks. I forget what it was from Germany. Now, I'm not going to knock Germany because Germany now is being really good. But Germany early on would promise stuff and then go, oh, we don't have any of those to give. And we're like, you just promised them a month ago. Does anybody here believe that the Biden administration and the Pentagon had no idea how many of these weapon systems we wanted that Ukraine has been begging for a year? And only this morning, somebody looked and said, oh my God, we don't have enough to give Ukraine. It's utter BS. It's a lie. I don't like being lied to. Okay. You guys are pretty good about this. When I write about this on Twitter, I always get the Biden fans jumping in and accusing me of being anti-Biden. You guys know how I am on Biden. I like Biden. I think Biden's done a great job with the war. I do think that Biden is far too afraid of Vladimir Putin, and that Biden basically pulls his punches when it comes to Putin. And he's been doing it with this war the entire time. I mean, let me read you a little more here, okay? The Financial Times put this. Oh, thank you, Bonnie. Bonnie's giving me fun gifts to make me laugh when I'm getting pissed off. So thank you for that. Listen to this other story or two, okay? That's also in context with this. Financial Times story, big, the Wall Street Journal of the UK, basically. Okay, the Financial Times, very good publication. The U.S. is warning Ukraine privately that and this is me paraphrasing, that Ukraine had better have some success soon. Thank you, Sig Sauer, because we can't keep providing them weapons forever, because we've got the political imperative. We've got Republicans in Congress. I should say MAGA Republicans. Other Republicans in Congress are very good. Most of the Senate Republicans are amazing in terms of supporting Ukraine. The MAGA, the Donald Trump Republicans, are terrible. A lot of them on supporting Ukraine because Trump is terrible on Ukraine. Thank you, Coeur de Lion, for that. So the administration has been privately warning Ukraine this spring, with this counteroffensive you're pushing, that you plan on doing, you better do a good job because we're not going to be around forever. Basically, to me, what the administration is saying is you grab as much land as you can now, and then you cut a deal with Russia. And basically, if you've got to give up land, you give up land. That's what they're saying. Now, put that into context. I mean, if I were Ukraine, now mind you, you don't want to bite the hand that feeds you, but we've been dragging our feet in giving Ukraine the weapons it wants and needs, okay? Now, not dragging our feet in general, we've been very supportive of Ukraine. That's great. But in terms of every time we support them, we don't quite give them what they need. So we just approved the tanks 2 weeks ago. They don't even have the tanks yet. And we're now telling Ukraine, we've given you a lot of stuff. This battle coming up in the next month, you better do well because this may be it, in essence. And if I were Ukraine, I'd be like, excuse me? What do you mean this may be it? It took until now for me to convince you to give me the stuff I need, and you're making up BS excuses about why I can't get it because, now you don't have enough of them. This has been incrementalism from the beginning. And it's pissing me off because I think it's dangerous as hell. The only possibility here of a silver lining is that the Biden administration is lying. And maybe they are. I mean, they're lying no matter what, because it's not like today they suddenly checked and found out how many missiles they had. Is that maybe, and I think this is a small chance, maybe the Biden administration is secretly giving Ukraine a lot of these missiles already. and they don't want the Russians to know. And for the spring offensive, we've given the Ukrainians so many of these missiles that they're going to surprise the Russians and blow them out of the sky or blow them out of the ground when they use these missiles, because the Russians aren't expecting them. And I mean, and I will say, I think as the expression goes, there is a non-zero chance, meaning there's a chance. I think it's a legitimate chance that they are lying, but boy, it doesn't feel like they're lying. It feels like they're telling the truth, because we have seen from the beginning, thank you, Flower Lady, for the Valentine's gift. From the beginning, we have seen with this administration, and again, Donald Trump is for Putin and hates Ukraine. So I'm not saying Trump would have been better than Biden. That's not the point, okay? And this is a point too that I like to make. When I work on policy issues, and I've worked on policy issues for 30 plus years now, foreign policy, domestic policy, I don't judge the policy by, well, let's compare it to the other guy and how badly he would have done. That's not the way it works. If we are trying to win a war, I want us to try to win the war. I don't want us to be better than the guy who sucks, right? In this case, the guy who's pro-Putin. It's not very hard to be better than Donald Trump in terms of your position vis-a-vis Russia, I would argue. That is a lame excuse. Thank you, Bonnie, for the llama. That's a lame excuse for justifying what Biden is doing. And again, I will reiterate, I think Biden has done an amazing job bringing the international coalition together. He has provided a lot of money for Ukraine, and that's great. But from the beginning, we could have been giving Ukraine a lot better weapons, and we didn't. It took us months to get those HIMARS in there. And remember, when they were getting the HIMARS, it was like 1. And then we were like 2 HIMARS, and we're like, it was like 2 a month. We're going 2 a month? I mean, all this garbage could have happened earlier. And these tanks especially, they don't even have the tanks yet. Oh, God. It's just pissing me off. So a quick little break from all of that. One of the other ways that I support myself with this work, because I do it full time and I do it for free, thank you, Addie, is I've got a Discord going. It's discord.aravosis.com. And the Discord is basically an online kind of a chat community, kind of hard to explain, but it's really cool. We all hang out. We talk politics. We talk cooking. We talk our pets, you name it, sports. And you can find it over at discord.aravosis.com. On TikTok, you can just find it via the link in my profile, that Linktree link. Find it there. You guys can find it at aravosis.com. We've got a lot of cool things, including a number of auctions of Ukrainian stuff. The most recent auction I've got going are these very cool, from a Ukrainian charity, Russian fighter jet that was shot down by the Ukrainians in March of last year. Actually, we've got all the info. Titanium, very cool actually, because you'd think they would bend and they don't bend. I mean, they're titanium. Auctioning that off right now. Half the proceeds we channel back into Ukraine. The other half support my work, because as I said, I'm doing this for free, and literally you're the only ones paying the bills. So I appreciate your guys' help for this. All right, let me move on now. That's discord.aravosis.com. So please do keep the gifts coming. This was interesting today. Sky News was citing a report in the Financial Times saying that the Russians are amassing aircraft near the Ukrainian border, and it's fighter jets and helicopters. Obvious concern here is whether this is in preparation for a big Russian offensive. Now, I've been saying for a while, okay, a couple things have been going on for a while now. We kept hearing for several months now about Russia possibly having a big offensive this spring. By offensive, I mean a big counterattack, that they were, getting their troops together, getting everything together to make some big push. It started looking more and more like Russia might even be planning 2 of these things. One of them, for now, the Ukrainians have been saying, I think the Ukrainians said February 18th, which is in 4 days, was when they were afraid the Russians were going to start one of their counteroffensives. And it looks already like they've already begun in eastern Ukraine, at least around Bakhmut and some of the areas there, right? So I think there may be a smaller offensive that the Russians are doing now, and then possibly a bigger one, whether it's the end of March, whether it's April, but some kind of bigger one there. So keep that in mind as far as kind of how all this is going. Well, in any case, my point here, thank you for that, Lamb Chopped, is we don't know whether this aircraft is for now or for later. Now, the Financial Times is saying that Western intelligence officials have reportedly said, this is via Sky News, that Russia is amassing fighter jets and helicopters close to the Ukrainian border. News of the development has prompted suggestions that Putin's forces are seeking to turn their troubled invasion into an air fight. While U.S. Defense Secretary Austin insisted the U.S. did not see imminent signs of a massive aerial attack, he is said to have highlighted the threat in a meeting with NATO's allies. That to me is interesting, because what I think that means is the U.S. government is saying we are seeing this this preparation, right, of the Russian forces on the border, of Russian aircraft. But since we're saying we don't think it's imminent, to me, that means we think this might be for the later offensive. This could be later on in March. It's not happening this week. Okay. Financial Times reports that intelligence shared among member states revealed the buildup of aircraft near the Russian-Ukraine border, fueling demands for urgent shipments of air defenses. Newspaper quotes a senior U.S. administration official as saying Austin's U.S. defense secretary's briefing to allies. He was very clear that we have a short window of time to help the Ukrainians to prepare for an offensive and that they have some pretty specific needs. Let's see. This is interesting, actually. I mean, it's interesting because the Russians haven't done very well with air, right? They've not gotten control of the Ukrainian airspace. Basically what the Russians have done is they've done a decent job controlling the airspace near where their troops are, but not beyond that. And the Ukrainians are doing the same thing. My TikTok account is the same as my last name, Aravosis. What the final point the article was making was it looks like the Russians are doing so bad on land that now they may be focusing on air again. Let's see if they can pull it off. General Milley, so a lot of this news is coming out because today was the Ramstein meeting again, which is the NATO defense secretaries, the NATO top generals getting together, and not just NATO, but basically all of the pro-Ukraine allies getting together and talking about how they can help Ukraine. They meet once a month to do that. Thank you, Booty, for the for the hydro slide. And one thing that came out of that today was General Milley, who is the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. He is America's top uniformed general. He said that Russian forces do not currently have the capacity to threaten a new offensive against Kyiv, the Ukrainian capital. That's good news. He added that the Russians have already launched their new offensive in Bakhmut, which is in eastern Ukraine. We've been talking about Bakhmut a lot the last couple of weeks. The town the Russians and the Ukrainians are fighting really heavily over. Russia has consolidated its forces there, and the fighting can last for several weeks, he's saying. However, this was interesting. The front line from Kharkiv to Kherson, what he's talking about there, meaning Kharkiv is all the way up here, okay? Kherson province all the way down here. He's saying that basically you've got fighting all the way, Kherson province at least, you've got fighting all the way along the front. The front is where the Ukrainians meet the Russians, okay? So he's saying that front line from Kharkiv to Kherson is quite stable despite heavy fighting. Ukraine is currently repelling enemy attacks, most notably from Russia's Wagner group. So what he's saying is, even though there's massive fighting going on between the Ukrainians and the Russians along this entire front across, the entire eastern and a lot of southern Ukraine, the land isn't changing much. I mean, it's good in a way because you don't want the Russians to make an advance. It's bad in a way because we need the Ukrainians to get more of their land back, right? So anyway, I thought that was interesting and helpful. I also have a Patreon account, just to reiterate to folks. Please consider subscribing there as well. Patreon is a neat service that you can use to basically help a creator by pledging a certain amount of money each month, $5, $10 a month. You can do it automatically, and it's a nice way for you to keep providing the help so that the creator themselves can see how much money they're getting each month. Please keep the gifts coming anyway. They're very helpful, and I appreciate it. And, all these guys take their cut, but nonetheless, it can be really helpful. Thank you, Bonnie. My Patreon is, and Epsilon for the cap as well. My Patreon is patreon.com/Aravosis. Again, you can find it at aravosis.com, or you guys can find it via the link in my profile. The link tree will take you to a long list of my sites. And I see Kevin Pelly pledged today. Thank you, Kevin. That was very nice of you. Appreciate that. Let me move on here. Germany's been really good the last few weeks. Germany complained today that other countries are not stepping up and offering their German Leopard 2 tanks that Germany said they can send. Remember how basically the big issue that was going on was whenever you sell your weapons to another country, you include in the contract a provision that says that country cannot share the weapon with anybody else. They can't resell it. They can't regift it without your permission because For example, the United States. We don't want to sell our weapons to some country and then have that country give American weapons to somebody else, right? So the big issue is trying to get Germany to agree that it would let other countries in Europe and Germany itself basically sell or give its Leopard 2 tanks that are really good to the Ukrainians. Finally, a couple of weeks ago, the Germans said, yes, we're going to do it. Okay. And it's great. And Germany also promised to send at least 14 of their tanks initially, but a lot more coming to the Ukrainians. So great news, and a lot more other tanks as well. Well, the Germans are now complaining because they're saying they're not seeing a lot of movement from other European countries stepping up and saying, okay, now that we can, we will provide our German tanks as well. We have seen promises from Norway, Poland, Spain, and Canada. That's good. The UK is sending its own Challenger tanks, which is good as well. It's a different kind of tank. They're sending, I think, 14 of those. Meanwhile, Poland, this is a good thing, says that its German tanks will begin arriving by March. That's good. Begin arriving, though, like, we need to get these things there fast, but begin arriving is still good. But Netherlands and Denmark, according to Die Welt, which is or is it Deutsche? No, I think it's Die Welt, a German publication. Thank you for the butterflies there, Verna. Netherlands and Denmark have said today that they will not supply Leopard tanks to Ukraine. They will be committing financial resources to refurbish 100 Leopard 1 tanks, which are the older tanks, in German warehouses. The Germans had said that they were going to provide a bunch of their old tanks as well, the Leopard 1s, and they needed to get financing to refurbish them because they're old. So apparently Netherlands and Denmark are going to provide money to refurbish the older tanks, but now they're not going to provide any of their new tanks. Why? Somebody just asked on TikTok, who pays you to brainwash people? You pay me, and please do. Nobody pays me. I do this full time. I get paid by you all and you all. So please do keep the gifts coming on TikTok and the gifts coming on YouTube. That's how I pay my bills. But I'm glad. Thank you for the troll to remind me, because I need to keep pitching that more. According to the Polish defense minister, Ukrainian soldiers currently, thank you, Hazel, for the fireworks. Ukrainian soldiers currently undergoing, thank you, Bigatory, or Big Gator Girl, I'm saying Bigatory, Big Gator Girl, Dawn May Joe. Poland's defense minister, who was that? Oh, and Dial Poll. Ukrainian soldiers currently undergoing training in Poland will be ready to operate Leopard 2 tanks by mid-March. That's great. Thank you, Marcy. In other words, part of the issue here is we've got to get pledges for these tanks. We've got to get the tanks to Ukraine, and then we've got to get the Ukrainians trained to actually use them. And what the polls are saying, because at least one of the trainings in Poland, one is in Germany. Thank you, Flower Lady, for that. And L. Austria just said they're not going to do training because the Austrians are being little jerks about it. Thank you, Patty. But the polls are saying that they're training, at least the Ukrainians should be ready to operate the tanks by mid-March, which is great. I mean, that's great news. And my final story tonight is a really nasty one. I'm saying it's not a great news night, guys. I mean, there's a lot of news, but it's nasty news. Just like I said, to warn you all. Thank you, Aggie, for that on TikTok. It's even got me. I can tell, like, I'm so pissed off. I'm like uptight tonight. It's really bad. I'm breathing heavier too. I'm like, ugh. Around 6,000 Ukrainian children have been held at sites in Russian-held Crimea and Russia, according to a U.S.-backed report by Yale University. I'm pretty sure I got this from Sky News, I think. Thank you, Harold Pear. The report, which looked at human rights violations in Russia, identified at least 43 camps and other facilities where Ukrainian children have been held in Russia that were part of, in Crimea, Russian-occupied Ukraine, in other words, that were part of a large-scale systematic network operated by Moscow since its invasion of Ukraine. The primary purpose of the camps appeared to be political re-education. Political re-education is basically a Stalinist term. This comes from, the worst Marxist Stalinist dictatorships, where basically you take people and you break them and try to brainwash them to make them good citizens. They literally, I mean, we knew this anyway, but it's more and more verification of this, that the Russians are stealing thousands, if not hundreds of thousands. The numbers get even bigger than that. I mean, the numbers are really up in the hundreds of thousands of children that are missing, and the Republicans are stealing them and trying to brainwash them and turn them into good little Russians. It's really, I mean, these are, and many of the kids, the article went on to say, some of the kids are legitimate orphans. Nonetheless, it's a war crime to take orphans. You don't take Ukrainian orphans. and move them to Russia. You take Ukrainian orphans and you give them to Ukrainians, right? But a lot of these kids, they've got parents, they've got relatives, and the Russians don't care. They literally just kidnapped the kids and took them. It's pretty sick. I mean, it's very sick. 6 Evo, thoughts on nuclear capable Russian ship deployed. I know what you're talking about. Yeah, I read this, I think, yesterday. The Russians have been putting tactical nuclear weapons, which are the, smaller, nicer nuclear weapons. Thank you, Epsilon. I mean, I'm joking, but it's what they are. They're the smaller nuclear weapons on a number of their ships, I believe, that are near Norway, up there in Northern Europe. The number of the Russian ships previously did carry nukes, but to this degree, they were carrying them, I believe, more like during the Soviet years. It wasn't recently. And the Russians have put nukes on their ships again, at least from what we're hearing. Did I do that? I mean, I think it's dangerous because the Russians are playing a lot of games with this stuff. But when it comes down to it again, they're not going to do it. They're not going to do it. I mean, they're not going to use nuclear weapons, They're just not going to do it. Because if they do it, then we do it, and then we blow each other up, and they know that. It's just, it's really, it's the same discussion we keep having. That's the only thing is I don't want to necessarily get into a whole discussion again about nuclear war, but I think they're just being obnoxious. They're being obnoxious and they're trying to threaten. And by the way, this is something that I basically predicted, which is the Russians, they're not going to use their nukes because if they use them, we've got nukes and then we blow each other up and they know it. So there's the same reason we can't use our nukes against Russia. They can't use theirs against us because we'd attack each other, right? But what they can do is freak you out about their nukes. And they do that by threatening them. And I had said they were going to do this. Start showing them off a little bit. Start deploying them. Start sending your nukes around, right? Start moving them around so that people look and go, oh my God, we actually see the Russians moving their nuclear weapons, because they're trying to scare us into no longer supporting Ukraine. And they're trying to basically give fuel to the people in the US and the other Western countries that are anti-Ukraine. The far extreme crazy left, like the Greenwald types and those guys, and also the MAGA right that's also kind of just as nutty about being pro-Putin. That's what's going on. Oops, hang on. There's another Danielle being very generous with a big question. While defending my position on Ukraine recently, I realized I probably hate Russia more than I love Ukraine. I adore Ukraine, but I've been to Moscow and I'm married to a Russian. Oh, that's interesting. Do you feel motivated more by hate for Russia or love for Ukraine? Wow. I don't like to use words like hate in this context, and not because, I'm a good Christian, right? It's not like that. It's because we shouldn't be making our decisions for foreign policy and national security based on hate, right? Love, maybe, but I'm serious, like positive emotions, maybe, but negative emotions, you go to war with somebody because you need to go to war with them, not because you hate them, right? Or we support their enemy, Ukraine, in this case, Russia's enemy, because it's the right thing to do, because it's strategically important for America. It advances America's national security interests, which includes advancing Europe's national security interests, which also advance America, right? You go through all of that, not because we hate Russia. I grew up during the time of the Soviet Union, right? So had many years to sort of see that stuff. I was born in the 60s. So I'm intimately familiar with that. I visited the Soviet Union in 1984. I studied a lot about the Soviet Union in graduate school and law school in the 1980s before it disappeared. I was no fan of the Soviet Union. I was viscerally no fan of the Soviet Union. And a lot of what Putin is doing reminds me of the Soviets. So put that in context with, I've also done a ton of civil rights work for the last 30 years, so that I've always been somebody who kind of gets involved when I A, think I can make a difference, and B, see somebody doing something incredibly obnoxious. I like to get involved and try to fix it. So that made me see this and go, you've got to be kidding me. I knew nothing about Ukraine, really. I didn't really know any Ukrainians. I've got like a Ukrainian American friend here. That's like the only Ukrainian I know, right? Now I know more. but I didn't really know Ukrainians, but I knew the Russians and I knew security issues in Europe. And this was literally like, a photograph of my graduate school education coming back. Everything I'd always been told about, not told, everything I always learned about the Soviets and the Russians had come back. So I would say, like you, I wouldn't call it hate. I would call it an intimate knowledge of the Russians and what they are like in terms of their foreign policy and their politics. Certainly motivated me to say, we've got to stop these people. I then came to love Ukraine as well, right? Because of everything Ukraine's been doing. I mean, you know what I mean? Just obviously, there's a lot to admire of these people, right? And they've also did a great job selling themselves as well online. I mean, the Ukrainians marketing themselves, right? Did a great job, and they keep doing it, marketing themselves. So that now my position is both intimate knowledge of how bad Russia is on policy. Thank you, Hazel. And very respectful of Ukraine, the people, the country. But also, again, it's not just an emotional thing. I now have a lot more respect for what value Ukraine provides as an ally to the West, right? A year ago, I would have gone, Ukraine, I don't want them to get overrun, but what's the national security interest and what's the national security benefit of Ukraine being on our side? Ukraine kicked Russia's ass, right? I mean, it still, it still remains to be seen who wins this war, but Russia should have won this war a year ago. They're not. The Ukrainians are a powerful ally to have, so anyway, there you go. So I think, my guess is we're probably kind of on the same page as far as that goes, but yeah, I try not to use the word hate. It ain't love. I'll say that. It's not love that I've got for Russia right now. Mary Walters, what happens if Russia overwhelms Ukraine and takes the country? What will the world do? A couple things. One, good luck lifting the sanctions. I think some of the allies will eventually maybe try to lift the sanctions, but I think I hope you're going to have a problem trying to lift the sanctions. Okay. That's the first thing. Second of all, guerrilla war. If the Russians take over Ukraine, I think you are going to see us provide a lot of weapons to the Ukrainian resistance, just like we did, the Afghan resistance. And the Russians are going to have a guerrilla movement in Ukraine that we're going to be. When I say guerrilla movement, I mean we are providing weapons that they are using to attack Russian soldiers on a daily basis, and it's going to be a long and bloody situation. Because keep in mind, Russia takes over Ukraine, and you've got 43 million pissed off people, that Ukrainians that they're going to have to be in control of. Good luck with that, but it's bad. I think that's a really good question, though. Well, same in World War II. Jor Prime is saying on TikTok, I'm not sure if this is what you mean, but it's kind of like the end of World War II, where you've got a situation where the Russians, the Soviets, the Russians basically kidnapped half of Europe. World War II ended. The Russians had a secret pact with the Nazis to basically split up Europe and told the Nazis, go for it. Basically, take what you want and we'll take Eastern Europe. And they did just that. And the Soviets were horrific in this regard. And the Soviets stole half of Europe they cut Germany in half, and east of Germany, other than, Greece got away with it. Yugoslavia, iffy. Albania, iffy. But everybody else got sucked into the Soviet orbit, and they were literally held hostage by Russia for 50 years, practically, and living under a horrific, terrible dictatorship. So, I fear the same thing happens, but I do think in this case, we would provide a lot of weapons and everything else, but it's not good. And actually, the final point, there's a lot of concern of what happens with the Russians if the Russians do win and they do take over Ukraine. Does that mean Russia now gets emboldened and says, you know what, this is great. This empire building we're doing is working, right? Every 8 years or so, let's have an invasion of one of our neighbors. Should we start taking some land in Poland? Should we start doing it to Latvia, Lithuania, Estonia? Do we start, maybe before we take land, do we start talking about how ethnic Russians are being oppressed? Look what they're doing in Moldova now. In Moldova, there's real concern the Russians are preparing some kind of a coup to overthrow the government. This is the kind of crap that they can do. And all of a sudden, they do stuff like that that's short of actual invasion on a NATO country. And what do? No, we hope we do not lose this. All right, let me pull up my TikTok, and we've got TikTok questions as well. Thank you. Who's that? Susan. I just see another Susan. Oh boy, Krauthamel. I'm going to say Krauthamel or Krauthamel did a pledge on Patreon. Thank you. That was very sweet of you. Q&A TikTok. Why are the extreme left against Ukraine? It's so confusing to me. I don't know. I mean, I really don't know. Two things here. One, I'm fascinated, and I'm sure some of our German friends can tell us why the Greens the Green Party in Germany is like the most pro-Ukraine of any party in Germany. I mean, I think it's the most. I was looking at some polling the other day, and it's like all these different political parties, and then you get to the Green Party, and it's like, it's insane. I just would have thought the Greens, thank you, Betty, for that. The Greens, big lefties, I just would think they'd be more peaceniks or I don't know what, right? The other thing, I just don't, called this. I don't know what's motivating I will say this for the far left. Exactly. Yava makes a good point. First of all, on TikTok, the far left loves the Soviets. There is an element of the far left of a certain age. I'd say my age and older, certainly older than me by like a generation. So maybe people who are in their 60s, right, and up, that grew up with this very unhealthy respect for the Soviet Union. They kind of liked the Soviets. They kind of liked communism. And I'm not trying to use it in a scary American way, but meaning they liked the ideals, and they just simply thought, the Soviets are doing it poorly, but we like the ideas. And frankly, I'm not going to name names. You see it today with some of the more mainstream far left, I'll call them, who have been Russian sycophants for years now, basically meaning people that worship at the foot of Russia for a long time now. The younger people like Corbyn, a perfect hired guy, is saying on TikTok, on YouTube, like Corbyn, Jeremy Corbyn, who was the Labour leader, the leader on the left, the big party on the left in the UK, is basically like a pro-Soviet anti-Semite. I mean, he's this stereotype of what the far left used to be and still kind of is. The people in the US, the thing is, the far left in the US is so far left. I mean, the anti-Ukraine far left is crazy far left. It's the American Communist Party. It's the Democratic Socialists of America. DSA, I got to tell you this because a lot of folks don't realize it. There are members of Congress that are DSA, that are Democratic Socialists, who some of you like. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. She's not my favorite, but whatever, right? I understand people like her, whatever. And some of her posse that she follows with, they're Democratic Socialists. The Democratic Socialists of America, the actual party, is cuckoo. Go and read their website sometimes. They're out of their minds crazy people. They have been going nuts about the war. I mean, nuts about the war. Just be aware of that as far as DSA. But the point is, sorry, I'm going sort of long on this question here. The point is, the person was asking, why is the far left in America so anti-Ukraine? It's a very small sliver of crazydom. It's that lunatic woman who ran for president with the Green Party here in America. The one who, again, is super crazy pro-Russia. The one who went and had the dinner with Putin and stuff. Jill Stein. She's just kind of she's goofy. They're not, it's not like there's a lot of smart people who I don't like and disagree with, but they're smart people, Republicans, Democrats, whatever. These guys, they're a little crazy. Glenn Greenwald, there's something wrong with Glenn. I don't know what happened. Something happened to Glenn, but there's something wrong. There's a bunch of folks that are, trying to do these, rage against the war machine rallies or whatever. It's a bunch of crazy people. That's the thing. So that it's hard to sort of figure out what's motivating them, because I think not everyone, a lot of them are crazy. They hate America. I mean, a lot of them hate America, but I mean, they hate America. It is not, I have concerns about America and there is kind of a pro-war contingent in America that we need to get under control. And there's an imperialistic past. They freaking hate this country, and they probably hate your countries too. So that's some of what's going on. Glenn, I always, the joke I make about Glenn Greenwald is, Glenn, show us on the doll where America hurt you. Glenn, there's just something going on. All of these guys, there's something. I look at them, I hear them, and I hear somebody who's damaged. I'll leave it at that. Elon Musk, there's some damage going on there, and I don't understand what it is, right? There's just damage there. It's really screwed up. Well, see, here's the thing. I see we've got a Russian troll. Feel free to ban this Wild Hunt. Join the Foreign Legion and rage against the war machine in Bach. Oh, wait, stop. I shouldn't say that. Are you? Oh, actually, don't ban that person. Wild Hunt. Okay, see, this is the problem. People make comments on TikTok, and I can't quite tell if they're Wild Hunt may not be a troll. You may be knocking the trolls. So confusing on TikTok. Anyway, there you go. So I don't know what the deal is. On the Trump side, we know with Trump and company. I mean, Trump was convinced by crazy people that Ukraine was part of a grand conspiracy to try to steal the election in 2016. And then Trump tried to get, Zelensky to drum up some information on Biden or whatever. And Zelensky wouldn't do it. And he threatened to provide he wasn't going to provide Ukraine weapons, and Zelensky wouldn't do it. So then Trump was pissed, and then Trump got impeached as a result. So Trump hates Zelensky for all of that. That's the first problem. Secondly, Trump clearly has a thing for Slavs in general. I mean, look at his wives. He's got this love affair with Slavic countries, and Trump has an unhealthy admiration for dictatorships and dictators. Now, it could be psychological, could also be business. I mean, let's face it, with Trump, I think everything with Trump comes down to self-serving. And frankly, Elon Musk, I'm kind of thinking the same thing lately too. They may not be crazy. They may not be stupid. They may simply be looking at who's greasing their wheel, who's paying the bills, or A, who's threatening them, and B, who's offering them money. And maybe that's how they make their decisions, right? So with Trump, you've got that. But then the problem is you've got Trump with all sorts of nefarious, crazy reasons why he says what he says. But then too many of the Republicans in the party listen to Trump like a god, and they go along with it. So all of a sudden, these Republicans who traditionally are strong on defense are defending Vladimir freaking Putin, who's a former KGB colonel, right? They're defending Russia of all countries, of all countries, Republicans defending Russia. It's insane. But it's because Trump had his own corrupt reasons, I think. And then the Republican Party went along with it because mind you, I will say both parties do that to a degree, meaning, unfortunately, they don't want to call out, their leader when their leader's doing something wrong because, you want to defend your guy. So Republicans want to defend Trump. Democrats want to defend Biden. I'm not saying they're the same, but my point is, I get why people don't criticize, but this is dangerous. What's going on with this, in any case. All right. Enough of that. Let me thank you, Grayson, for that little cute bear under the blanket. Oh no, not all Republicans. First of all, I always say these are the Trump Republicans for starters. These are the MAGA Republicans. May not be all of them, but it's a lot of them. It's a lot of the MAGA Republicans. They're bad news. They're bad news on this stuff. There's it's cult-like. And if honestly, it's kind of funny because on national defense, a lot of the MAGA Republicans are kind of like Democrats, but the way Democrats used to be, they're not strong on defense. I mean, I don't want to blanket all Democrats like this, but let me put it this way. A wing of the Democratic Party. Thank you, Annie. Oh, that's cool. I've not seen that before, Annie. Thank you for the carnival music. A wing of the Democratic Party that has some strength in it used to be very anti-war. And the point was anti-war for any war. Like there's no war that can be justified, right? And they didn't like us standing up to the Soviets and everything else. That's now become the MAGA Republicans, the Trump Republicans. They're weak on defense, I think. They don't want to defend this country. And it still blows my mind that the Democrats haven't figured out how to turn that around on the Republicans. Because again, they're attacking all the rest of us for being strong on defense. Like Americans don't like people who are weak on defense. I mean, they need you to explain why it is that you want to fight a battle, like why it is that you're supporting Ukraine. You got to be able to explain that. And I don't think Biden's done a good job explaining that. And the Democrats should do, and frankly, Republicans should do a better job, the good Republicans. Ben, I know it's nothing to be concerned about, but did you see the Russians flew planes near Alaska and Poland today? I did not, but it is nothing to be concerned about. Yeah, I mean, That's the stuff they always do. That's the stuff they always do. You know, um, they just do it to. Well, there's two things. One, they do it to test. They are constantly probing because they want to see uh, how long does it take us to recognize them? How long is what's our response rate? Like how quickly do we respond? Right? All of that because it gives them information in case war ever does break out. So they go, okay, we know if we attack America, it takes this amount of time for once we enter the airspace for them to come get us, right? This kind of thing. It's also meant to be obnoxious. It's meant to psych us out, to play psychological games as well, right? Oh, America, look at us. We're on your borders. It's, they're playing games. I mean, I don't care in a way. I mean, I think it's fine for you to bring it up. Thank you for the question. Chris QT82 on Twitch. I'm not sure what you're referring to. Did you read DoD Secrets report today? I don't know what you're referring to. If you want to tell us more, feel free to. Alec is saying, I could be wrong, but while some MAGA supporters hate Ukraine, I think that some on the left blame the U.S. for this war. They may. Oh, thank you for that, Hazel. That's a very nice one. Thank you for that. That's very cool, too, but I know that was very generous of you. Thank you. Some on the left blame the U.S. for this war. Yeah, but they're the crazies. That's what I mean. There isn't really, quite interestingly, there isn't a very strong left anti-war movement here. Thank you, Inspired Woman. There isn't a strong left anti-war movement here. There just isn't. So, I mean, again, some of the crazies blame the U.S., but the point is, as I said, too, I think most of these crazies hate this country. They hate this country. Most of the crazies on the far left. And honestly, I don't think the MAGA right leaders like this place. Donald Trump doesn't like this country as far as I'm concerned. A lot of his top followers, I mean, Steve Bannon would like nothing better than like a Marxist revolution to happen in this country, I think. He doesn't American democracy. Do we really think any of these people are in love with American democracy? Please. Right. So there's a hatred of America in a way on that side, on the Trump side of the aisle, but it's a hatred of American ideals and now actually the military and justice and all of that, right? They hate the FBI now. They attack the Pentagon. I mean, they attack anybody. It's a little messed up, but the far left, like I said, far left's crazy people. Oh, thank you, Robin. Appreciate that. Robin Dahl. Let me see here. Thank you, Brian, for the little heart there. Let me pull up another TikTok question here. A little more water too. I mean, we talked about the Russian offensive earlier. It looks like one offensive is already kind of going on, which is basically the Russians having a major battle, the battle around Bakhmut and the area around there. I think there may be a second bigger one that they're planning, whether it's sometime in March or April. Did the far left attack the Capitol? I mean, back in the 1980s, there were like Puerto Rican separatists or something that bombed, terrorists who bombed the Capitol, I think in the 80s. Hard to come up with anything then. Some lunatic took a shot at the congressman at their baseball game a couple of years ago. That's about it. Turkey leaving NATO. I don't think Turkey can afford to leave NATO. I think Turkey is enjoying being a pain in the ass. I think, but I'd kind of be like, sayonara, Turkey. I mean, nobody wants that to happen because also my guess is if you're pro NATO, and I am, it's almost like the European Union. You don't want Brexit. You don't want countries to start leaving because potentially that starts convincing other people to leave and things like that. So, we probably don't want Turkey to leave because then other countries could leave. Having said that, Turkey and Hungary, there's a part of me that's kind of like, go. And Serbia too, to be honest. I mean, before we're letting Serbia into all of these organizations too, Serbia needs, do we really need another vote from a country that's basically going to vote against our national security interests because they're beholden to Russia? It's oof. DDoS secret hackers got into Russian blockers and give it to DDoS secrets release pieces. Okay, so basically, Chris. So basically, there was some kind of a hacking of Russian defense stuff. It looks like I have not heard anything about it. I'll keep reading up on it, but I'm sure the folks I follow on Twitter will be talking about it. I follow a lot of the defense, sort of the what is it, the OSINT or however you pronounce it, guys on Twitter and stuff who are really good. Let me see here. So they'll talk about Russian bloggers. I say, yeah. They'll be talking. I'll look I'll look tonight. I'll keep my eyes open for it. Thank you. No balloon news other than we still don't know what it is, but there's increased talk of them looking like balloons, the things we shot down. Again, they still haven't come clean and told us what the hell's going on with the balloons. And I don't get it. I think it's stupid. I just think it's stupid. Just come clean. Just tell us what's going on. But, oh, well. What else? We've talked about this before, and I don't really know. Paul LWC is asking on TikTok, just a general question. Why, basically asking, why is Russia constantly threatening to nuke the UK? I don't know. I don't know. Like anybody who's a Russian expert, if you can sort of point out, like, why does Russia just get so upset about the Brits? And they really do. And I don't think it's just Boris Johnson. It could have been, because Boris Johnson was amazing, right, in terms of his support for Zelensky in Ukraine. But man, if the Russians aren't just, and they're always threatening to nuke the Britain especially. And again, it's not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. Crimea War, care to tell us more, Daniel? Because the Brits are a member of NATO. The Brits have their own nuclear weapons. The Brits have their own nuclear submarines. So, the Brits Russia isn't going to touch Great Britain or the United Kingdom. They're not going to touch them because that would mean war with all of us. But boy, they hate the British. Well, Germany, Russia's got this thing of trying to scare. I think again, Andy's saying they're scared of the UK. I think they're scared of the UK. And I think they can scare Germany. So notice what they're doing to Germany is the Brits, they're actually threatening them in a chest to chest kind of way, right? Like, guys, they're threatening them in a, oh, you British, we can blow you up, right? Like, we're pissed at you, and right. It's more of this equals kind of thing. With Germany, the Russian threats are more like, Germany, you better be careful. We're going to nuke you. We can just come to your border. It's trying to do psychological warfare to scare the Germans whenever I hear them talk about the Germans. But with the Brits, I don't hear psychological warfare. I hear this, we're afraid of you. We're scared of you. We're jealous of you. And somehow by threatening you, we're going to make ourselves equal to you. That's what I hear whenever I hear the Russians talk about Britain. They're not saying things that they really think are going to scare the British. They do think they're going to scare the Germans. I don't think they're necessarily going to scare the Germans, but that's what I hear out of it. It's really interesting, though. I mean, it's really interesting. Randy's saying, I've watched over 40 U.S. aircraft being sent to Germany in the last week. Oh, that's it. Well, we should have. I mean, first of all, a lot of those aircraft could have, weapons that we're sending. Weapons that we're sending to Ukraine, basically. Oh, here we go. Alec is saying on YouTube, the Russians don't like the British because the British fought against the Russian Empire in the Crimean War in the 1850s. And after World War I, Britain sent a military force to help the whites in the Civil War. How funny. I mean, that's just insane. That reminds me of like people who get upset about our Civil War. I don't mean upset as in, the racism thing. We should still be concerned about slavery. That I agree with. But meaning, people in the South that get upset over the Civil War, and I'm like, grow up. It was like 200 years ago or whatever. Well, 200, but I mean, 170, whatever it is. But, that's funny. That's really funny. Just the theory, but that is very funny. Yeah, well, whatever it is, they've clearly got to stick up their butt about the British. And I will say this too, it's kind of a tell too. Like if I were the Brits, I'd be like, okay, good. You're scared of us and we freak you out. Good. I mean, if they're elevating Britain by doing it, really, or Britain, the UK, whatever you people call yourselves. Too many names for that place. Let me see more questions here. We're almost done. You can't add money to your account for gifts. Well, sorry. Thank you for trying at least, Lori. That's crazy. Sorry about that, but thank you for trying at least. I have no idea. TikTok is funny. Sometimes stuff just doesn't work. I never know why. Thank you, Chezak, for the hat. Rob Wall is saying, a bit off topic, but so much political division around the world, such as here in America. Do you find it surprising there have not been more successful assassinations? The thing is, political assassination, I don't know. I guess to some degree, sure, right? To some degree. I'm surprised with, if you look at the stuff that's being said, if and I don't want to get into a thing right versus left here, but thank you, Witch and Boots, for that. But yeah, I am surprised, especially when a lot of guys have guns and we've got a lot of weapons. And even though we don't have an assassination culture, we have a weapons culture and we have a mass shooting culture. We have a culture of people getting pissed off and using violence. That we do have way too much in this country, right? And we have a grievance culture. The lawsuit part where everyone has to sue everybody all the time. Certainly the gun thing has gone a little too far, so that I am surprised that the gun stuff we have is, people just blowing, like at that school in Michigan. Was it today or yesterday? I can't ever remember anymore. I think it was yesterday. Oh yeah. Another mass shooting. It's not even, I really tune it out at this point. Another mass shooting yesterday at like Michigan State University or something, or Missouri, MSU. I shouldn't say it's Michigan. Was it Michigan or Missouri? I just, at this point, I'm like, you know what, whatever. Literally every day we have a mass shooting in my country. I'm just, in any case. So yes, I'm surprised with that happening, that people don't also do it with politics. I'm glad they don't. It's Michigan. I thought it was Michigan. Thank you. Michigan State. Okay. I was right. All of a sudden I said Michigan State and then I got worried it was Missouri and I was naming the wrong state. Michigan. Yeah. All right, guys. Maybe last little question or two, and then I'm going to say sayonara here. Well, I'll skip Discord for tonight. Thank you, Grouchy, for the hat there. Oh, Grouchy old man. It could be due to intelligence in terms of stopping presidential assassinations, but what about congressional, right? What about violence at the local? All the crazy stuff about the election and the ballots and all that stuff. Those guys showed up with guns. They didn't use them, which is good, but they didn't use them, All right. I'm going to do a quick recap of the news and then call it quits for tonight, kiddies. And then I will be back tomorrow. All right. I did see that. Yeah. The Russians are giving cash to their soldiers for captured ground. Who knows? Will it work? The thing is, you're dealing with a very corrupt, military and a very corrupt culture. So I don't know that, offering the soldiers money. All it is more money that the commanders are going to steal 20% before they give it to the soldier. So I guess, no, I don't think it'll work. All right. Summary of the top stories tonight. Biden administration is now saying that we will not be sending ATACMS missiles, long-range missiles to Ukraine because we don't have enough of them. I cry bull, because for a year, Ukraine's been trying to get those weapons. And only today did we find out, gosh, we don't have enough. Bull. We knew before. Oh, thank you, Big King. We're heading towards Mardi Gras already. I guess that's true. 2 weeks away. Thank you for that. I think that's a BS answer. Financial Times says the U.S. is warning Ukraine privately. They'd better have some successes soon or else. Russia is, hang on a second here. Oh, I forgot. I had one more story I was going to give you guys. This was in the Financial Times. Okay, listen to this. Biden reportedly, or the Biden administration reportedly, has said that Ukraine will not get F-16s from America, the fighter jets Ukraine wants, but will eventually let our allies provide them if they want to. I was going to bring that up with the stuff we started at the top of the show, which is this whole, thank you, Big King, for the goggles, this whole notion of, thank you, thank both Big King, this whole notion of of incrementalism and going slowly, and how basically we say no now, and then eventually months from now we'll say yes, but it'll be too late for the new weapons we're going to give. So we're saying no, we're not going to give F-16s, but we're already admitting, but someday we're going to say it's okay for other countries to give our F-16s to Ukraine, but we're not going to give ours. Well, first of all, that drags it out. Okay, that's the first problem. Like, just do it now. Why wait? Why wait 6 months? Second of all, do you really think other countries, thank you, Azamak, other countries are going to give their F-16s when America goes, we're not giving ours, but hey, you feel free? They're going to be like, why the hell would we give our planes, right? Thank you, Big King, for that. So, I mean, I just, oh, God, it just fits into more of the BS. It's just more of the BS. Russia is amassing aircraft near the Ukrainian border, Western intelligence reports. General Milley, who's the top American general, says that Russian forces do not currently have the capacity to threaten Kyiv, the Ukrainian capital. That's good. Thank you. Who's this old disgruntled trooper for the tag? Germany is complaining that other countries haven't stepped up to provide as many tanks as they promised they would once Germany said that they would allow the new tanks to be, the Leopard 2 tanks to go. According to the Polish defense minister, Ukrainian soldiers currently undergoing training in Poland will be ready to operate the Leopard 2 tanks by mid-March. Thank you, Meg Wood, for the Passion of the Rose. Around 6,000 Ukrainian children have been held at sites in Russian-held Crimea and Russia and are expected to undergo political re-education. And a lot of these are kids who actually have parents, and the Russians have kidnapped them. All right, guys, that is it for today. Thank you for joining us. Thank you, moderators. As always, TikTok looks like it was busy today. The rest of you on YouTube and Twitch and everywhere else, thanks for joining us. I am John Aravosis, reporting to you live from Washington, D.C. I will be back tomorrow, 6 p.m. Eastern Time, U.S. Join us then. And other than that, I guess I'll just say good night. I got nothing else to tell you for tonight. Thank you, Hazel, for that. I'm going to skip Discord tonight. We did a long time on Discord last night. I think we went to like 8 o'clock last night, like an hour. So I'm going to skip Discord tonight, just like take a breather, maybe make some chocolate or something. And we'll be back tomorrow. Hopefully better news. Excuse me, better news than today. Oh, as I yawn at you all. Hey, I got through the whole day without, good Nacht. I got through the whole day without, with the whole show without yawning until now. That was pretty good. All right, guys. Have a good evening. Thank you for the gifts, and I will see you guys tomorrow. Remember, set your clocks every Monday through Friday. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, 6 p.m. Eastern Time, U.S. That's New York City time, even though I'm in Washington, D.C. Same thing. Put it in your calendar, and that way you won't forget. All right. Thanks, guys. See you later. You guys, see ya.